up, everybody? It's Faith Sockstone. Owner of Elevate to Motivate, but you don't really need to know that. Just know I'm here, I'm alive and well. And I'm about to tell you, by the grace of God. To be honest with you, I don't know what day it is. I don't know the time. I'm just existing. And I'm here to tell you that I am a mother. I'm a mother. I'm a mother. Let that sink in. I want to share my birth story because it's a testament of how God is faithful despite it all. I don't know what your belief is. I don't know if you consider yourself spiritual, religious, whatever the case may be, but there has to be an acknowledgement of God because for me, I cannot do any and everything, especially in this journey, without God. So let's acknowledge that first. I had to learn how to let go of control, and I think I've been talking about this on a grand scheme of things in different aspects, especially the last time I spoke was about my mother passing, and I'm still dealing with that, but just the growth between March, my son being here for almost 2 weeks, 3 weeks, something like that. He was born June 10th. It has been an absolute setback. I am sleep deprived. Not really a setback. It's been a growth journey, and I want to acknowledge the growth because, like I've always said, testimony is a privilege to share your story, not as an ego trip, but as a way to acknowledge a higher authority, which is God, and that no matter what you're going through, you can experience the same thing, whether your journey is similar to mine or somebody else, or you're just experiencing things for the first time in your life. It's all going to be okay. It's all going to be okay, and you have to let go of control because as human nature, we want control, and realistically, it's not about you, it's not about your situations, it's about how God can turn any and everything around. So that being said, my birth story. For those who don't know me, I am very holistic. I do not trust modern medicine. Does it have its perks for people who need it? Absolutely. I'm not taking that away from people, but for me personally, it does. I'm not with it. I believe in the power of plants and herbs, and a lot of your medication that you take is actually derived from plants and herbs. So they just mass produce it to make money, but we're not about to go on that. So June 9th, 2023, my water broke at 4 a.m, but let me start before that. I have been planning physically, I've been planning to birth at a birthing center in Statesville. I'm down here in Charlotte. And it was just going to be a blissful experience for me. I was going to prepare to do a water birth. I was prepared to have a midwife, a doula, just honestly go back to what I know. I wanted to be empowered within my birth. I wanted to have some type of control, meaning, the child is still going to be in control. Messiah was my son's name, but I wanted to feel like I had a say in it. And it was all going well. I had a low-risk pregnancy. I had no complaints, like honestly, truly. And June 9th, or June 8th technically, I lost my mucus plug. I texted my doula, kind of panicking a little bit, like he was only 36 weeks. I had just turned 36 weeks, and I was like, I'm pretty sure there's a mucus plug, but I don't, it's too early. But my doula told me not to worry about it, that, you could lose it weeks before, and I was like, okay, no worries. So June 9th, 4 a.m, it's all right, baby. You might have to take a pause on this. June 9th, he started panicking. There he is. But yeah, 4 a.m, I lost my my water broke. And for those who don't know, whenever your water breaks, you have to go to the hospital. I called the midwife after hours at the birthing center, and in my mind, I'm like, I'm going to have to give a hospital birth. But I was hoping that maybe some way she was going to tell me that, oh, no, we'll still take you. Because with the birthing center in Statesville, you have to be at least 37 weeks in order for you to be admitted. So I knew, he about to come early, which no one believed me by the way. But anyway, I knew he was gonna come. I knew I was just gonna give a birth at a hospital, and I was sitting on the toilet talking to the midwife, and she's telling me I'm gonna have to go to Presbyterian Novant Hospital, and I cried. I absolutely cried because in that moment I realized like I have no control. It is not about what I want. Little Faith was very distraught by that because I wanted what I wanted, and we paid money for it because with the birthing center you pay a small amount, whatever your insurance doesn't cover, and that's it. I didn't want medical bills. I didn't want all the stipulations that came with a hospital. So we're packing up. By the way, the house is not done because we did not expect him to come at 36 weeks. And then we're going on the way to the hospital. I remember praying, remember bawling my eyes out, and just was like, this is not okay, God, it's in your hands. It has to be, because I'm going to panic. Mentally, I was not ready for this. I wasn't in active labor yet. I honestly didn't even have contractions. We got to the hospital around 5 something. They took me to triage. I think that's how you say it. I don't know. Sleep deprived. But, you know, I met the midwife. By the background story, the midwife for the birthing center, because they had a relationship with Presbyterian Novant, meaning for people who may have to be transferred, they had previously called, met the midwife. To be honest, wasn't I ain't gonna say her name, but I wasn't a fan. You know, spirit, no spirit. And you can already tell hospitals are all about convenience and quickness and whatever they need to get you out. Yeah, again, this is my opinion, but you can't deny what the truth is. And so she was already trying to shove me with meds. They told me because my water broke that I was at risk for infection. Okay. But then she told me that, let's do a cervical check. My mind, if I'm at a risk for infection, what does that help if you're going to stick your hand up my vagina? And gloves are really not that sanitary. And come to find out, you don't have to accept those cervical checks at all. But in that moment, I was tired. I was panicking. My brain, again, mentally was not prepared to be here. So I told her, okay. It was honestly the most painful thing ever, the cervical check. I hated it. Her hand was like shaking, trying to put it up my vagina. And I was like, this is not how it's supposed to be. My husband was like, are you good? And I was like, yeah, this was what comes with it. I let her know that I was planning. She tells me I'm not dilated at all. She thought the baby was breech, which I was trying to tell her he's not. He's been head down for the last couple of weeks. Again, everything's been low risk with me. She's asking me all these questions, and I was honest with her. I was like, I was not planning to be here. I was planning to have a home birth. A water birth at a birthing center, which anytime I said that in the hospital, I either got a comment of how that's not safe, or I'm so glad you get, whatever their opinion was. I didn't listen. My truth is my truth, and my opinion and my ways of doing things is my ways. That's okay. So she tells me, immediate, let's expedite or induce your labor. My husband wasn't with it. I wasn't with it. And I said, I want my body to do what it needed to do. My doula has been preparing me on tips and but labor tips and things like that. And surprisingly, they gave me a birthing ball and a peanut ball they gave me that to use as techniques, which I honestly was shocked because I didn't think that they were actually going to be, I lost my train of thought. I didn't think they was going to be so proactive in helping me with that. So I will give that to them. So I got admitted to the room. I was having contractions, but I didn't feel them, at all. So then 5 o'clock went to 10 o'clock, 10 o'clock went to 12. They would come and check up on me. Hey, you're not progressing. I think you should take Pitocin right. I think you should take this route. Which was frustrating me because realistically, I felt pressured. I'm contacting my doula, let her update me. My doula does not really come until active labor. Of course, I kept switching nurses and midwives and things like that. And the frustrating part with it was anytime a new nurse or midwife would come in, specifically a midwife, they would have their own opinions on what I should be doing. So, how long it was going to take. And they were trying to tell me, well, here's the risk if you don't take medication. Okay, and I asked them, what kind of medication do y'all use? Oh, we use morphine, that is a form of dope. Medical dope. She was like, there's fentanyl and something else. Fentanyl? Bro, people are dying on the streets with fentanyl. And you gonna put that in my body? That don't sit right with me, but you want to tell me the risk that is not, the risk of not taking it, but you're not telling me the risk of taking it. All that being said, I had to do a lot of praying because I was being pressured or feeling pressured is not the tranquility of a birth that I wanted. And, you know, by 2-3 o'clock, I began to get frustrated with my own process because I think I went to like 1 centimeter dilated or something like that. And I asked them the most least intrusive. I wanted to kickstart my labor, not really induce it, but soften in the cervix essentially. And I did end up taking side attack, something like that, which it wasn't actually to induce your labor like Pitocin, but it was to help soften your cervix. I took that, K for that, at peace with it. And at first I did it because I was like, oh, I failed. But at first I did it. She was then, again, this is about 6-7 o'clock, I don't know. Fast forward, June 10th. I don't know what time it was, but all of a sudden, I was feeling the contractions. I was doing a comb method. I asked to sit on a birthing ball directed by my doula, to sit in the shower, which the midwife said no, because I was at risk for infection, but you had no problems coming in and trying to get cervical checks for me. They once again were telling me we might have to go to Pitocin route, might have to do this, and I was like, no, I already took the side attacks or whatever, which I was okay with. I was not with Pitocin. I was not with any of the epidural. They kept coming in, and somewhere around, I don't know, 7. Apparently I went from 3 centimeters to 10 centimeters. I had the urge to push. The pain was real. The pain was real. It was wild. It was wild. The pain was definitely bearable, but yeah, anyway. By this time, the doula had sent another doula that under her care to help me. And I just really had the urge to push. The nurse was telling me don't push yet. And I was like, no, my body knows what it's doing. Like, it's time. It's time. I think this was around 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. I don't know. I don't know the time. The nurse comes in, or the midwife comes in, because the doula goes and gets her and was like, okay, Faith is saying that she needs to push and it's time. She's advocating for me. And I had her do another cervical check because I needed to know. Sure enough, the midwife was like, oh no, I don't think it happens like that. We're gonna have to give her Pitocin. I was like, Pitocin gives me strong contractions. I'm literally having contractions every 1 to 2 minutes and they are intense. It's time. She checks, oh my God, you're 10 centimeters. You were only 3 centimeters at whatever time that was. And I was like, he's coming. He's coming. And I don't know how long I actually pushed. His heart rate at one point did start to drop a little bit. And she told me that they were going to have to do emergency C-section. I said, absolutely not. We was going to have to do an epidural. She was like, it's not too late. If you want to do that, absolutely not. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. Sure enough, I pushed through. And at 11:21 p.m., my lion cub was here. Chocolate. He was super chocolate. And everybody think he like his daddy. It's just because of skin color. I was in complete bliss, and I remember after I gave birth, I put my arm up. I was like, I did it. I did it without medical intervention. And it was just a sigh of relief, and I was so thankful and grateful to God that he chose me to be this boy's mother. And I got scared, which I'm pretty sure is normal. Like, oh my God, this whole human being is my responsibility. What am I going to do? That being said, we got admitted to the postpartum section, and you know, my doula came in, coached me, and hormones were raging, all the normal stuff that comes after giving birth. The midwives and them were shocked. They was like, you didn't take any medication, you didn't take none of that? No, that was my plan the whole time. I didn't want to take that side attack, but I felt pressured. I wanted to hurry up and just at least start it. So that being said, we went Of course, he had to do the newborn screenings and things like that. And honestly, we stayed longer in the hospital than what I wanted, to be honest. Once again, control. Because we were told by every midwife and every nurse that came in that if he passes the car seat, whatever test, if he passes the hearing test, the auditory test, the blah, 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 all these newborn screenings, that we can go home. Then the midwife would come in and we were told something different. My blood pressure was good. Like, I was all good. Like, I feel like personally they were looking for something to be wrong with me. And it got to the point my husband stepped in and he was like, listen, we were told this. Y'all wait until another problem was they were waiting until it seemed purposeful for the new nurses or midwives to come in just for them to come up with a new diagnosis, quote unquote. Finally, I think Monday, so we were in there since Friday. Monday, we were finally released after we pushed, and we pretty much said, yeah, he passed all his blood work, he don't have jaundice and things like that. We gotta go. Hospitals cannot hold you if you demand to leave. We go home. Everything's fine for the first couple weeks. Of course, we're exhausted, we're tired, but still in bliss. Like, this whole being came out my vagina. That's crazy. Then maybe about Wednesday, I started having really bad swelling. I was getting blurred vision on top of just being emotional. And I had to be readmitted to the hospital because I woke up dizzy while I was holding him. And we were told by my mother-in-law, who's a nurse, that it might be a high blood pressure risk and go ahead. I was then told that I had developed preeclampsia, postpartum preeclampsia, which they honestly found weird because I was never high risk. I never had blood pressure problems. I never had a family history from my knowing of those type of things. And I know, unfortunately, Black people can be labeled with high blood pressure problems, with diabetes and things like that. So they was like, it's not uncommon to develop it, but for me to have it, it was weird, and it was high. It was very high. I don't remember all the numbers, but they put me on a 24-hour magnesium sulfate, which is the cure, I guess, pretty much to make sure that I don't go into having a seizure, which is eclampsia. I then honestly was I can't say traumatized, but I was due to my experience in the hospital, I didn't want to go back. I didn't want to listen to nurses. I didn't want to do any of that. And I was told that I most likely be on medication for the rest of my life for hypertension. I refuse to accept that diagnosis. That's just not happening. My body's going through a lot, as my doula was telling me, and after my own research, you're not going to put me in a box. So then, after the 24-hour, I really wanted to go home. Because thank God, I had a friend who came in and was able to watch him while Gary stayed in the hospital with me. During the magnesium sulfate, I was actually able to regulate my own blood pressure. And so they allowed me to go home without medication. By this time, my mother-in-law had came down to take over, to give Gary a break, to give me a break, so I wouldn't have to be coming from a hospital taking care of a baby, even though I desperately just wanted to be in his arms. Separation anxiety was a little real. I bonded with this child. This is my son. And y'all telling me I can't go home and see him. Forget the health scare. I didn't care. But now I understand that caring is me taking care of myself as well. That's hard if being in postpartum. Not impossible, but hard. And then during that time, I came home, and maybe that was Wednesday, Thursday, I went right back in. My blood pressure, my mother-in-law was regulating me and monitoring me, and she was like, you're still showing pretty high. So I was like, oh my God, I have to go back again. Honestly, a little over 24 hours. So I go to the emergency room. It was in that moment I broke down again, because I had to come to the exception that I might have to be put on medication. Something I was fighting with, and I realized how tired I was of fighting. Fighting a system, fighting for my rights and what I wanted was honestly not helping. My blood pressure was not helping me get home, which is the most thing. Yeah, my health is important too, but I just wanted to be home. So I had to let my pride aside, set my pride aside, pray, acknowledge God. Once again, let him see, show himself faithful to me, show that I'm taken care of. And I can't even explain it. Once I did that, as I sat in the emergency room looking at looking at other people hurting, whatever their situations is, there was an immense amount of peace that I had, and it didn't make sense. I was laughing. My blood pressure was extremely high, but I was laughing. I was crying. I was watching videos, and I was just like, okay, whatever happens, whatever happens. I was at peace with it. Whatever I needed to do. It's not about me. It's not about my feelings right now, although valid. They took me and told me that I was going to have to do a 12-hour another thing of magnesium sulfate, which was frustrating because I was told the first time that once I get it the first time, there really is no scientific evidence that you have to get magnesium sulfate again in order to actually lower your blood pressure, if that makes sense. It was just more to stop seizures. But because I was so high, they had me do a stroke test, make sure I wasn't having a stroke. And that's when I realized that with my numbers, the way they were at, I could have had a stroke. I could have had a seizure, but I was literally laughing, and the doctors would look at me like, girl, you almost about to die. And I don't know, I do know it was God, and there was no denying it. I could not deny it. And when I went back, they put me back into labor and delivery since I was still fresh in postpartum. And honestly, I got the same nurse that I had the first time, and I was realizing God was also sending people who were laughing, who were joyful, and it was honestly a different experience. I still didn't want to be there, but I was taken care of. I got the opportunity to rest, and they put me on a 12-hour this time. They said, listen, we're going to go the medication route, because they did give me a medication because I was so high in the emergency room. I dropped tremendously. And they said, listen, we want to get you out. You've been in and out a lot after spending 4 days in a hospital just for the birth alone. You haven't really been home a lot, so you're gonna have to take medication. Okay, cool. I stayed in there 12 hours. They were really happy with my numbers, and